Hey guys, welcome back to the What About AI podcast. I'm Sean Boyce.
I'm James Perkins.
And the topic that we're going to talk about today is the ongoing saga, which is Anthropic, and I think essentially basically kind of like the federal government. There's been a lot of talk about usage of AI, in particular for defense, specifically in the United States here, and Anthropic and the federal government, the current administration, they've gone back and forth a number of times. We want to kind of catch you up on where that is right now and what that might mean for you. So in recent weeks, I would say, as ongoing geopolitical climate continues to shift and the usage of AI continues to spread, there have been use cases where the government, and in particular the Department of Defense, they have leveraged AI for various international operations, I'll just say. And I think previously, and James, you can comment on this of course as well too, a lot of that usage has been with Anthropic's tool set. What had happened more recently, though, was Anthropic was in conversation with the federal government about the continued use of AI, and there was some debate in terms of security, its use cases, and what essentially the company, I think, was comfortable with or not comfortable with, and they went back and forth with the government. Long story short, they basically kind of had a falling out, which the government had issued essentially kind of a threat or a next step in terms of if Anthropic was unwilling to comply with their requirements, that they would be labeled as a supply chain risk, and which has now, I think, officially happened. And then as recently as yesterday, today is March 10th, but yesterday on the 9th, I think Anthropic filed not one but two lawsuits to the government related to essentially some of those labels and the potential risk or impact to their business. So anyway, we're going to catch you up on what's going on here and basically what it means for you. So where do you want to jump in?
Well, I'll start with, I think the entire thing is so freaking ridiculous. I mean, has no one ever seen the movie Terminator before? the 2 points, I've said before, I think Anthropic probably has the most human-minded leadership in the sense that they're concerned about where AI could go. And it could go wrong. I mean, we talk about some of the positive aspects of it. We've had some negative chats too, but sure. AI could perhaps go horribly wrong. The robots could take over.
Skynet.
Skynet, iRobot. Like, how many movies do you have to see
right.
with this dystopian possibility? So the two big things they pushed back on from an Anthropic perspective were unmanned weapons, autonomous weapons, where the AI was deciding who could live or die. And then the second was universal surveillance. They didn't want, Anthropic didn't want AI being used for universal surveillance, where it wouldn't just be taking control of cameras, but it could look at your Facebook profile and your LinkedIn posts and your text messages and consolidate all the information it could grab from every single possible source to basically understand you, perhaps even better than you understand yourself. Like, it would know your schedule and your habits and behaviors that you might not even have awareness of. So those are the two big things they pushed back on. Unfortunately, that was, I think Pete Hegseth said that's untenable. The Department of War cannot tolerate that. We need full access with no restrictions. And Anthropic and the Department of War kind of went head to head. And then eventually, to Sean's point, the federal government got involved more broadly. It's such a bad thing for America. Like, this is one of the biggest AI companies in the world, arguably the best at several different functions like coding, and then language reasoning, I would say. And to have our own country at odds with a company that was built here, founded in America, and aligned with American principles. They may be a little more liberal than you'd like, but it's here. It's in our country. It just kills me that we're having this discussion, this debate. And then I also have seen numerous posts or commentary from folks in the military, and I have family in the military too. Yeah. And the feedback was like, this is amazing. This tool is amazing. I can't imagine not using it. And they're going through testing right now, different spots where OpenAI might fit in instead. And they're not getting the results. They're not as accustomed to using OpenAI. So they're seeing more lag time on certain requests that they got completed faster in Anthropic, Claude, or different responses that might be a little bit less verbose where they want more verbose. So it's gonna be an adjustment period. And it's a bad time to go through that adjustment since we're currently at war with Iran.
Yeah, fair. That's certainly going to add to the complexity.
So I just ranted for 2 minutes there. I don't want to get political because we have our own personal opinions. But this company is like, no one can argue Claude and Anthropic are not huge players in the AI space. They are. They're
Yeah.
everywhere. So if you care about the direction of AI, and recognize that they give the United States an advantage over other countries in the world, China, then it's important to consider the fact that we are alienating a company from our entire federal supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, pretty dramatic implications for that label on Anthropic in terms of its ability to do business here and elsewhere as well. Also, raises a lot of potential questions, would certainly flag some things if they were in the midst of working with different types of geos and things like that. Also, probably worth mentioning, we didn't say this, I think you alluded to it, James, but I didn't mention it in the intro, was when the deal essentially kind of had fallen through for Anthropic, OpenAI, I believe, shortly thereafter, essentially had announced a partnership with the Department of War and I think, assuming so, the federal government as well also. So as James is describing, a lot of what they're going through now, which does seem like it probably, I mean, it's going to eat up time, right, and maybe be counterproductive. They're going to have to remove instances where they had Anthropic's technology implemented, and they're going to have to replace it with something, probably OpenAI. So that's just going to cost time, and then there's going to be, adjustments, of course, for the different products and services that technology offers versus what they were accustomed to using at the time. So, and the other thing we'll mention is that this isn't really flushed out yet. It's still kind of in motion. They filed the lawsuits yesterday, so we'll see how this continues to play out from here. It obviously has pretty significant implications for the technology, how governments are leveraging this technology, the use cases for the technology. Something we'll also say, or I'll share, is what James had mentioned about the two, essentially kind of the sticking points on the Anthropic side that they wanted to make sure were accepted in order to kind of enter or continue that relationship. Because they held their ground on that, there's been a pretty significant, I would say, outpouring of support for Anthropic and its leadership across the board, even at other AI companies as well also. Like James is saying, I would say the vast majority of us probably do not want a Skynet type future. So as much as I think it's important to kind of balance making sure that we are continuing to be innovative and leveraging new technology and giving it an opportunity to develop, but being as responsible as we can at the same time, because still stories come out occasionally where we're seeing personalities develop. They're seeing unique behavior that maybe wasn't necessarily predictable, but something probably worth keeping an eye on as it continues to evolve and we try to get closer to AGI and something like that. So yeah, some precautions I think are probably a good thing, and we'll figure out kind of where that pendulum swings to or when it eventually does come into balance. So before we wrap up this topic, I think it probably makes sense for us to talk more to the listener about what this means for them, what their next step should be, how they should be thinking about stuff like this as well too. So you want to go first?
In terms of next steps for the individual, I don't think, to Sean's point, downloads for Claude, I think, went up like 100x after this
crashed. I think they crashed some of their products.
So
demand was so high.
There's an upswell of social support, like the community, people, individuals downloading the app. But I don't think anyone wins if we're basically allowing a war to occur within our own little bubble of the U.S. between OpenAI and Claude. I think that's a worst case scenario in my mind. And this is like a slippery slope. So if you have any interest in logical fallacies, look up slippery slope and get the full context of what that means. Basically, it doesn't just happen that you go from AI that's completely separated from weapon systems to an AI that's fully embedded in weapon systems. It starts somewhere. So if you start here with it only has access to missiles that can fire long distance, it can't do anything else, it just progressively gets more access over time because it seems like a better and better idea. That's how Skynet was formed. If you haven't watched the Terminator movies,
I think one takeaway here is you got to watch Terminator 2.
I mean, it's
Terminator 3, I think it was. I get the number wrong.
It's ridiculous how much this aligns with the premise of the films. So I say next steps as an individual, maybe don't focus so much on what any government is saying or doing. Focus on what you think is the right thing to do, which is really the principles that the United States of America were founded upon, and use the tool that you think is appropriate, that serves you best as a consumer, and as an American citizen. I know we're talking to the whole world here, but I think it's really a U.S. issue to discuss.
For sure, and implications elsewhere, of course, based on how this probably shakes out long term. Something I would add to that as well too is I would say this also underscores, for various reasons, whatever technology maybe you start using as you're wanting to learn more about AI, its availability is tentative, maybe I would say at the moment. So you may have access to something for some period of time, but that may change at some point, and you may be some turnover there. So because the access to whatever it is you're using, let's say for business, for example, because there isn't necessarily a clear winner or only one option. Good news is so far there have been multiple options, but companies are figuring out what the evolution of their tech stack looks like. So if you have access to one today but not the other, that might change tomorrow. As such, I think it's important to make sure that you keep your skill set as general as possible. And I would experiment with and learn as many of these tools as you can, because that means whenever inevitably you do have access to, those skills are ideally transferable from one to the other. So learning some of those differences, I think, is a good investment of time. That way you'll be prepared for if there's going to be disruption to what you have access to. And then, tuning into our show and things like that is also probably good so that you have an idea where the market is heading, right? What does access to various tools look like? I think some of these tools like Anthropic's been pretty well focused on the business sector. Like what does access look like in terms of who's going to have which tools and what they're probably primarily designed for, so that you're basically just using the right tool for the right job.
That's a smart guy right here.
I don't know about that.
I think one thing to add there, so if you're trying to keep up, it's almost impossible. Like, we're following this every single day. After like a couple of recent announcements, our time just blew up with interest from folks. But we're abreast of every single change in AI. Like, this is our space. This is our livelihoods. We're living it every day. For anyone else watching, you probably can't do that. We built a tool for that. It's actually like I'll call it a Duolingo for AI without violating any Duolingo.
You still need the bird. Yeah, we need the equivalent of the bird.
We need some kind of little character there.
Owl, technically.
But basically, it's an app we have on the site. So if you go to whataboutai.com/app, you can download it. And basically, it just lets you learn all the latest in AI, and you keep up with it every day. As things change, you'll know about it. You don't have to go troll the news or find ways to learn about it. It'll talk about what matters in AI and how it matters to you. Pretty much every day we're making changes to it. So give it a shot.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. I've always dreamt about like immersing myself in whatever it is I wanted to learn, guitar, French, something like that. And it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna focus on that all day, every day until I nail it. But it doesn't really seem all that practical in the real world. So I think the best way I've learned things like that is like a little bit every day over time. So that's kind of the idea we're going for with the app. So yeah, sign up. That should be coming soon.
That was a wild twist from Department of War and Anthropic to we need a mascot for our
That's
app.
right, Duolingo's Owl. Good stuff. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks all.